August the 9th, 2021.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Mike, have you been able to start the recording?
Recording has started.
I just started it. Yeah.
Okay, we've already said that Sherry has a record of attendance. You also have an attendance of those not here tonight. Again, the declaration of conflict of interest. I took the liberty of looking that up in Robert's Rules of Order this past week, and that's basically if any of you are voting and have a monetary benefit on anything that we are voting on, please state so at the time. And we'll look at our options thereon. Moving on, approval of the agenda. Did everyone receive a copy of the agenda? Okay. Did everybody receive a copy of our last minutes of the agenda on April, what was April 12th? Okay.
Mr. Chair, correction, that was July the 12th.
July. Yeah.
Pardon me, Natalie?
July 12th is the meeting minutes that you're looking.
Yeah, that was the minutes from the last meeting. Is that correct? Did everybody receive those?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to this agenda. If you look forward, look on it. Does anyone have anything to add to it? Nick, can you just move up to the bottom there? I'm just making sure that I've got what you've got. Yeah, perfect. I've got what you've got except for that link, but I know what that link is. Okay, is there any?
I'd move acceptance of the agenda as presented.
Okay. Do I have a second? I have a second from Derek. Sorry, if I miss anybody here, I gotta remind you that you're all like 3 by 5 at the bottom of my screen here, so I'm trying to watch two things. Would anyone like anything deleted from the agenda? No. Okay, so the agenda goes as stands. Moving on to, we've already looked at the last minutes and approved them. Moving on to the public input stage. We've had two letters. Pardon me?
We need a motion to approve the minutes, please.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as they stand? I believe that was Gail and Derek.
That was for approval of the agenda, and I will also make the motion for approval of the minutes of July 12th.
Okay, thank you. And a second from Derek. By all means, Sherry, stop me if I get backwards here. Moving on, we had two letters this week, and one individual that's here to speak. So I'm going to let him go first, and that's Terry here. And Terry's here to talk to us about Crohn's and colitis, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And you're going to talk to us about an app that I tried this week. It didn't feel that it got great representation in Yarmouth.
No, it doesn't actually, and I'm glad that you saw that.
Okay.
It was a couple of years ago, actually, that I saw this app. They had mentioned it on Crohn's and Colitis Canada's website. I myself have Crohn's, and so what that means sometimes, especially if I'm in a flare, there's multiple trips to the bathroom, and sometimes it can be quite urgent. So when they mentioned this website, or this app rather, I downloaded it, tried it, and it's like, oh, no, there's nothing here. Is this, is this what it's supposed to be like? So I just checked around other places like Toronto, because that's their head office. And sure enough, I could see some of the Go Here logos that are within the city of Toronto. So I just checked out a couple of places, and places like Montreal had some stuff like that. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's the bigger places, what have you. And then when I looked into it a little further, like I had said to you earlier, Stephen, you actually need to sign up. Like the businesses need to sign up to display the decal in their windows. And then you get registered on the app as a place that's, safe to use the bathroom. You don't have to, there's no questions asked. There's no monetary gain or anything like that. You don't have to go in, get something to eat, get something to drink, whatever. It's just a spot where you can actually use the washroom.
Okay.
If needed. So that's basically what it is. What they put it out there for is for people like myself, or even other people like my wife, who has interstitial cystitis, which is a bladder issue, to see where places where you can actually use the washroom with no problems. There's no locks on the doors. There's nothing there. You just go in, ask where the washroom is, and there you go.
Okay. I'm not going to let you go just yet. I want to ask some questions here.
Oh, for sure.
In your opinion, have the businesses as well as the town registered enough public bathrooms?
No, definitely not. Like down in Main Street,
And what you're
especially
saying to us is all we have to do is sign up.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I work downtown, and the only spot that I know of, other than some of the businesses, they don't mind you using your washroom, what have you, but there's this misconception for a lot of people that if you need to use the washroom, what have you, you need to go in there and buy something. Right? So it would be great to be able to not have to do that, to be able to just use a washroom. I mean, that's a right that everyone should have.
I gotta be honest, until you were introduced, I never heard tell of the site. I've been to other sites like the Tim Hortons site that shows you every Tim Hortons that's from here. And I would also think that would be great for a parent with kids.
Right.
Because the first thing you know, you throw the kids in the back of the van and it's Mom, Dad, I gotta pee.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're going on Google Maps saying, okay, where do we go?
Yeah, for
We've
sure.
all done that. We've all been there. So I'll ask the counselors what would be involved in getting the town to put their registration out there.
I think it's just a matter of communicating it. If we can get it out on social media and somehow get around to some of the businesses, whether it's through social media or phone calls or visits. We actually discussed this at the last meeting as well about bathrooms in the downtown core. And I know we did come up with that town hall has one, and that is accessible anytime for anybody. But I think it's a good idea. I actually heard of a man. I think when we brought it up last meeting was that older gentleman that I heard about that was at a store downtown and needed to use the bathroom and couldn't, and they ended up going home with his pants wet back to Argyle or Pumlico, somewhere in that area. So I think it's a great idea if we can do that. But then the other part is to also let users know that it exists as well.
Yeah. I didn't know until I went out downtown that Killam's Wharf has public bathrooms. I've been living in Yarmouth all my life, and I just found that out. So it is something we don't think about, but maybe it's something as a committee that we can bring forth and say, okay, guys, sign up.
Yeah, and definitely, like you said, it's something that a lot of people don't think about, and a lot of people are sort of embarrassed or shy to talk about because, it's a washroom, right? So we just need to break that stigma somehow and let people know where there are public washrooms available. You had mentioned town hall. I didn't realize that.
Okay, is there any other questions for Terry before I let him go? Comments? Gail?
Yes, I'm thinking that town hall's mentioned, but typically the town hall closes at 4:30.
Mhm.
In the future, that might be 5:30. It might be extended to 5:30, but that doesn't address the evening hours. And I don't know that the Killam's Wharf restrooms are open overnight. I know that at one time they used to be locked, only because of vandalism. And then they would supply keys, I think, to the visiting boat owners. But so I'm not sure what the status is there. But I think if we're going to do something like this, it might be wise to also have hours of availability on the app, so that somebody's not running from pillar to post trying to find a washroom that is accessible at 7:30 in the evening. And I think the only one I could think of that might be like downtown would be the Grand Hotel, if they would allow it. So I think we'd have to put hours of operation in that app.
Okay,
It's a good
I
suggestion.
agree. Yeah,
Does that currently exist that you can add the hours of operation?
I'm not sure, actually. I haven't looked into it all that much. I did
Yes,
send
they
Stephen
do.
the link. Oh, really? Okay, good.
I only know this because when I was using the site, it kept referring me to 15 Willow, which I believe is the government building.
Yes.
And then down on the corner, it would say closed. So it was the only washroom it would recommend, and then it would come up and say it's closed. So, I'm going to say that we put this on for further study, because I think it's just a matter of getting people to sign up, that we'll put this down on the service. What are we calling this? My tongue's tied tonight. Programs and services, and basically list what we have for town bathrooms and get them listed. Is that fair?
You said it comes, there are stickers that they can get as well to display. Is that
Yes. Yeah, it's called the Go Here Deco.
okay?
Yeah. And all they have to do is just request one of those decals, I believe. I'm not sure if you request it when you sign up or not, but you definitely can request them, and you can just display it in a prominent window.
Perfect. Right. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Yes, thank you very much for everyone's time. Bye now.
All right. We also received a letter, and I'm sorry I did not catch a name of this person. Sherry, was that from you that sent the letter, or was that from Natalie with regards to 2nd Street?
That was from
Somebody pull that up?
a community member who just forwarded it to me. I think they wanted to remain anonymous and asked if I could share it with the committee.
Okay. I have seen someone who I know is in a wheelchair go from John Street, go from Dairy Queen over to up to that physiotherapy place and struggle. I have not seen somebody go from the parking lot to the physiotherapy place personally. I do know that since the letter has come up, I went and took a look. There is a handicap parking spot right smack in front of the physiotherapy place on 2nd Street.
I think the concern is that many people who use the physiotherapy place are requiring the accessible parking spot, so it's not available. I think that was the idea behind it. So I don't know if Natalie has anything to bring up, but someone had noted that if someone parks in the Collins Street lot, it's difficult to, and they're a wheelchair user, it's difficult for them to get from the lot, like at the corners of the lot. It appeared to be very difficult for someone to be able to navigate their way to different spots. So I was hoping Peter might be here and might be able to chat about that a little bit. I don't know if anyone else has any.
I don't know of any. Natalie, is that,
Well, yeah,
is
so
that
part
picture
of,
around?
actually, I don't have easy access to it, but
Okay.
so one of the things that our group
to
has,
everybody,
I'm
when you
sorry?
get it, Is it
Yep, I
possible to
can
get
see
that picture to everybody when you can find it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to suggest that once we start our street audit, which we have to create a little team to do that, in the accessibility guideline for doing the audit, it talks about parking, the parking requirements, all of the things kind of around what Sherry has just mentioned. So our team here should be able to uncover that, identify that, and that'll be brought back to as a recommendation to council. So yeah, it's just not that spot. We actually have to do a review of all public parking spots. So it'll come up then.
The only other thing that I'm going to mention on this that I found kind of odd about that spot is all of the accessibility parking spots in the Collins Street parking lot are down around SIPs, around the back end there, with some on the side. I could not see any up and around 2nd Street. There was no marked. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. There's no marked handicap parking spots along that upper corner. So,
The other thing I just want to bring up, because I drive my mom quite often, and she's got a wheelchair van or vehicle that a ramp comes out of the side. So sometimes you can load in from the back or from the side, and it's very difficult in the downtown, and this exists in all towns, but to find a spot where you can park, you need 2 spots for a van like that.
Yes.
There needs to be a really wide spot, and I actually at Port Maitland Beach the other day, we noticed there is actually a double spot there that she can use. But often, like, it's pretty hard downtown. You can't really, especially on a street, you can't have 2 spots, but it would be interesting to explore a little bit of, are there any places downtown that allow for somebody who uses the ramp on the side? Oh, and Peter's actually on his way in.
Sherry's about to say something as how her lips move.
I just said, okay. Did Lori have something to add? Sorry if you didn't, Lori. I thought I heard you start a
Wait,
speaker.
I guess my main problem in town is the parking, because I obviously can't walk too far, and I find any handicap spot there is, everybody else has it. So I definitely have a hard time finding one. I guess that's the big problem for me, that I can't get close enough because I find that lots of people need them. Like at the physiotherapy place, things like that happen to me all the time.
Are you saying that the handicap spots are being used by people that are not handicapped?
I don't know, not necessarily. I'm just saying that they're always taking maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not sure. I don't have and that, like where I work, people say, well, did you check if they had a thing at the window? Well, no, I'm not gonna go driving all around the place just to make sure. All I know is they're taking.
Okay. So are we, as a committee, are we happy to refer this issue to what will later be investigated, the the sidewalks, parking lots, etc.?
Yeah, I think there's a formula that you use for determining how many spots you need, but I don't think it takes in consideration the makeup of the town, because we are becoming somewhat of a retirement town, and with an aging population, I see the spots gone often. I noticed it because my mom, the spots are often gone, and it seems like they are in fact wheelchair vehicles, or have the thing in the mirror or on the license plate. So I don't know if people are abusing it as much as, I think there's just a high need in our community that, but I think it's based, to meet the criteria, I think it's based on a formula that I don't think necessarily looks at the makeup of your community.
Yes, and I have noticed too that sometimes people are just sitting there, just waiting. I don't know if they're either they're in the driver's seat and they're waiting for someone, or else they're just waiting for someone walking. Either or, they're doing that too.
Well, the other question I want to ask is, should a physiotherapy place located where it is have more disabled parking spots? I don't know if that goes against our rulings, but I guess my question is, should it? Can we make that recommendation? Gail?
Again, Mr. Chair, I believe Natalie suggested that that would be addressed in the street audit. So perhaps it's a good thing to bring to the attention, but I don't know if it's anything that we can act on independently without having to first done the audit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think you can take a hit and, like an individual approach to it. I think we have to address it as an overall look at the larger picture, I guess.
I did see that it looked like the spot had been cleaned up a little bit since the picture was posted. Somebody gone in there and mowed it. So that was good. Okay, do I have everybody's permission to move on from this subject? Okay. Moving on. Business. I guess I'm first up, and I'm just going to bring you up to date on what has been going on behind the scenes. First of all, I sent a letter in support of Gail's development of the Meadow Fields. How's that coming along, Gail? We broke ground yet?
No, I mean, we ran into some issues in regards to the application for the feds, and so we've put everything on hold basically for the summer. But we have been gathering some estimates of the magnitude of the work that has to be done. So we've got some quotes for example, the preparation and paving of a wheelchair accessible path, and we're looking at something along the lines of the new trails, like the 8-foot paved trails that the town's putting in, and we also have estimates on the outdoor, so the bowl sort of, I can't think of the word right now, but anyway, we've got estimates from a mason and a construction company on that, and we're looking for estimates on the timber frame structure. So once we get all the estimates together and we start looking for funding sources, it's unlikely this thing's going to be built overnight anyway, but we're looking at something that we think will be will address some of the needs in this community. So we're looking forward to working on it.
Well, thank you, Gail. I look forward to playing in it too.
Yeah, I appreciate your letter too. It was,
for it.
Yeah, the letter will be very good for when we do make application for grants.
Okay. Moving on, I also sent a letter on base camp. If you noticed in the Southwest Wire, I guess it's called, there was an article on behalf of Yakwor's Day Camp. And I did not know this, but it's been going on for 10 years, and it basically exclusively deals with children that have autism or other neurodiversity. And I'm sure Sherry will testify with me. If you know anything about camp, we totally believe in the experience of camp. That's how I met Sherry, was at camp. So I totally believe in what camp has to offer, and I did send a thank you to Yakro for their work in that, because it is very hard to find a camp, especially a day camp, that will handle autism and other neurodiversities, because they can be a bit challenging, but they're well equipped to handle it. So I sent a thank you to them. I also, moving on, as we already mentioned, we received 2 letters. Moving on from that, September, I want to remind you, is shaping up to be a very busy month. Our next meeting, as it would fall, will fall on Labor Day. I'm assuming we're not going to meet that day. So the next Monday after that is the 13th. And as Natalie and Mike will be talking about later, we've looked at moving our social gathering to September the 20th. However, moving on from that, towards the end of August, we're going to be looking at advertising. We're going to be looking at circulating our questionnaires and all kinds of stuff like that. So enjoy your Labor Day, but be ready to come back, and we're going to be working hard in September. We also met as a group to review what you should have gotten guidelines to planning an accessibility meeting. Pretty common sense stuff, but take a moment and read through it. Later tonight, we're also going to be looking at the Town of Yarmouth's Policy 54. I do wish we had a full attendance for that. And maybe I don't know. We might be able to move that to the next meeting. I'll have to see what Natalie says about that. I'm still working on getting some information on the splash park. Basically, all I did is read what's online. I've not had the time to reach out to talk to the people involved. But that's on my agenda to be done. Next, we have work plan deliverables, but Natalie's going to take us through our work plan, where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone see this? See the screen?
Looks good.
So I'm just going to run you through just the highlights, because we'll be delving into it a little bit more in the rest of the agenda. So a draft statement of commitment has been prepared. It has been bundled into the overall accessibility plan framework that we've started. And I will be working with Sherry, Stephen, Jane, and Mike. And did I miss anybody on that? So there's already an outline with some of the content from the Goods and Services Subcommittee and other portions. So we're moving along there. So I'm actually on schedule there. Number 4, we'll be talking a little bit more about that. But right now we're on schedule based on activity happening in September, and reports going to council in November, and then having a presentation to council and the community update. So we're on schedule, but we'll go through more of that later on this evening. And we're still on schedule with the council awareness session based on that we complete our tasks in September. And Francois will be speaking tonight on his update on the town hall audit. So no red flags there. And I just spoke to the plan. Sorry, I jumped ahead of my schedule. We're still looking good there. And that's it for the update. So right now there are no red flags. We're going to have to probably establish we will have to establish a outdoor activities audit, and I've got the template already. So perhaps we'll reach out, since we don't have all the members here, in separate emails to see who would like to participate, and then we'll bring it back into to the September meeting, if that's okay. And that's my update, if there are any questions.
Okay, is any questions for Natalie before we move on? No? Everybody happy? Okay, moving on, we're going to go over to Mike, or does we have Francois on the line, did I see that? Okay, I must be seeing things. Mike is gonna talk about communications.
Yes, thanks, Stephen. So you covered some of this already, so thank you for that. It's going to be busy, like you said. So heading towards the end of this month and into September is going to get busy, especially from a communications perspective. That's going to be the bulk of my work I see coming real quick here. So we spoke through about this last week a bit. Myself, Stephen, Natalie, and Jane. We have the Vanguard interview with Tina. I spoke with Tina today. She's confirmed that for August 31st, 3 p.m. So the actual details, logistics, location, all that sort of thing, I'll get sorted out with her and then communicate with you guys, and we'll get that set up. So that will be good. That'll give us a good boost heading right into the September timeframe as I start to do the promotion, the advertising, and that sort of thing for the public consultation side of things. I also spoke with Wade today, actually, Wade Cleveland, and he's going to reach out to you first, Natalie, I think, and then to you, Stephen, about setting up a weekender interview on CJLS. So I'm not exactly sure of the timing yet. Again, that will be heading towards the latter part of this month, and hopefully get aired at late this month or early in September as we head towards the engagement sessions. And the only other thing
Sorry, Mike, Natalie, would you mind making sure that one of our counselors are also on that?
Absolutely. I was going to actually extend the invitation for both the Vanguard piece and for the Weekender. It's open to, it doesn't have to just be, yourself and Stephen or Jane. It can be others as well. So we'll put that invitation out to Gil and Derek and anybody else as far as that goes. Okay. And the only other thing I wanted to add as well, over the next week to 2 weeks, I'll be putting together all of my my messaging, all my ads, my content that's going to go out through social media, radio, radio, newspaper as well. And I'll be zipping that out to all of the communications subcommittee members first for a look and get your feedback and approval. And then as needed, we'll get it out to the other group members before it goes. So it's going to get busy, but that's about it.
Any questions for Mike? Thoughts, concerns, ideas? Okay, everybody's a happy bunch. Everybody smile if you can hear me. There we go. Okay, moving on. We have the audit plan, which is part Natalie, part Francois, and on the line.
Hi, team. Can everybody hear me? I'm apologize
can.
for not being able. You can. Perfect. I apologize for not being able to share a screen with you, but on the link under my name and presentation, you should all be able to open something up on your screen. And what you'll have there is a Town of Yarmouth Town Hall Accessibility Audit Survey Rating Summary, which is basically a 6-pager. That's the Reader's Digest version of the complete 20-page document. So if you can go through that, what we're going to do tonight is basically just go through very quickly the good side of it, which is the areas of success. I don't want to dwell on that too long. Everybody can take time to read through that. It's all the good things. I mean, it covers outside approaches, covers exterior stairs, building entrances, and all that. Page 1 and 2 is basically what we did good. And keeping in mind that when the building was built, it followed all the building codes requirements at the time. So middle of page 3 is where I'd like to focus a little bit more attention. And this is where we talk about the areas of improvement. So within the areas of improvement, these are things that an auditor will underline the immediate things that need to be looked at because they concern safety items. So let's go through this a little bit. Safety items, I mean, you got concern is the emergency sign. So you have the picture in front of you there that shows that the sign is fairly small, it's fairly busy, there's very little contrast, and there's glare. So imagine somebody with limited vision or person in a rush situation trying to get out. It'd be very difficult to find the right path to get out. You know, stated there, all emergency control should be accessible, including relocating fire alarm pull stations and extinguishers. So we have issues right now in the building where those devices, the pull stations, the fire extinguishers, will not be reachable by somebody in a mobility device. So those are things that need to be looked into, and that's part of the safety item part. Now, again, this is very short, abridged version. There's a more detailed 20-page document that's available on the shared drive. And also those two reports come from accumulated data, measured items that are on the big Excel report that is created during the audit. I'm going to move our attention a little bit to short-term suggestions. So there we talk about signage. And again, so from the most important items in a decreasing order of importance through these suggestions, including basement lobby lighting, for example. So when you come in through the basement, it's always a point of contention on my part that it's not lit the same way as the rest of the building. So it's always darker. So there's something that could be done there, definitely, whether it's just putting more fixtures or something that, you know, changing the fixtures there, that the wattage of each fixture. Rear parking lot for accessible parking space. For example, they're installed, the signs are installed, but the height is not right. It has to be at you know, currently they're lower than they should be. The universal bathroom door should have a power operator for entry and exit. That's a should, not a shall, right? So it's a difference between what we have now and what we can attain to. And just stepping back a little bit, when you look at an audit like this, it gives you a score. And the score is basically a baseline of where we are at the current time. And if we want to improve our accessibility, well, this is where the suggestions comes in. And this is where budgeting concerns comes in for the administrators. Another example, short-term suggestion, urinals should have privacy screen and have grab bars. So I refer here to CSA 651.18, and then I give another list of references at the bottom of this 6-page documents. And within the detailed report, you'd have a lot more references and a lot more examples of how to do things a little bit better. Last one here, internal identification and directional signage should use sensory characters. So what that means is that some of the signs we have currently can be very confusing because there's a lot of information and it may or may not be as orderly as it could be. So design of signs and the contrasts used when you select a certain color for the background, color for the type, for the letters, for the symbols, makes a huge difference as far as accessibility is concerned. Now, we're just going to move on. Long-term suggestions, and you got a couple of pictures there. So long-term suggestions, they include, but they're not limited to structural changes. So we talked about short-term suggestions, which would be probably very easy to change hardware, colors, signage and such. Long-term is we're looking at the Main Street parking lot, for example, the curb that's cut in, that curb could be as a slope with tactical attention indicators, TAIs. So we were talking earlier about the access of a ramp of a vehicle to offload a passenger on the right-hand side. Here's a good example of where going from street level to curb level on an inclined plane or a slope would be a lot more accessible. So even for a pedestrian or a person coming out of a vehicle, stepping on, there would be no curb to hit. Looking at the second picture, the accessible parking spaces at the rear entrance. So in this case here, we have a location, ample space for 2 vehicles, but what we're missing is a direct line or short access route to the entrance. And that could be very well solved by having a ramp that would be in the grassy area. So going probably from the base of the stairs that you see in front there towards the right, a certain distance to maintain a minimum slope, and then back up to the level surface of the concrete sidewalk in front of the doors. So that would allow a wheeled mobility device to go up and be a lot easier than going all the way to the corner of the parking lot, then getting onto the sidewalk on Glebe Street and then coming back to the left to the door. So that's a bigger project right there. Another example here, the wide stairs, we talk about intermediate handrail located between a certain distance. So if you look at the stairway of the back parking lot, again, the stair rails are very far from one and the other. If a person needed 2 rails to be able to go up, it would be a challenge, okay? Another example going down on the list, it's about traditional key and lock tumbler system. Right now, we're in the process, I understand, of Town Hall acquiring a different door system for the back. And it's going to be very, very helpful for accessibility issues, where you can have a remote operator off to the side, the door opens up, and then when it's for controlled access, then instead of using a key, it can be a keypad or it can be a card sensor. It would be, provide a lot more accessibility there. And then again, all the way down, top floor emergency staircase. This is a safety / long-term. When you have buildings with multiple stories, you should have what they call a refuge area. So this is a location that's sprinkled, under fire protection with water sprinklers, and it has fire doors to allow a person in a mobility device to be out of danger in case of fire. So a refuge area would be an area where doors would close, prevent fire from attacking a person, and it would also give rescuers a chance of taking somebody that's in a wheeled device and going down through a staircase safely to bring the person out of the building. We can talk about this a lot, but there's a lot of information. So within this 6-pager, there's a lot of references, and I've given some very short list here from CSA resources, building codes, a color and contrast guide. We talked about signage. There's other universal design, definitely a really good place to get that information. So this is the end of my little short presentation for this, which is only the 6-pager of a 20-pager. And then those documents and the survey data is also available on the Common Drive. I think that's it. And anybody have questions for me or?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Anybody got questions for Francois while we're here?
It's a lot to take in. I appreciate that. If you have a chance to read through it and you want more information, feel free to reach out to Natalie, and we'll be able to provide you a lot more information. And keeping in mind that these are suggestions to improve what we already have. And I'm very aware of budgeting concerns and priorities when applying a report like that to future plans. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. And please, everybody, when you do get it, take a moment to read through it, because I have a funny feeling these will come up, these issues will come up again when we have our public input sessions. Moving on. We're going to take a look at policy 54. Natalie, do you have that up, ready to pop up? Did I lose Natalie?
I'm still here.
Okay. While Natalie's trying to find that.
So the policy, I guess the question is, you have I think 3 members not here.
Right.
And so really, and again, it's not a sense of urgency today or even in September. Yes, you can. It's just the identification, and maybe, Mr. Chair, if you wanted through Sherry, your secretary, to maybe send out a request for those that want to raise their hands up, just so that you have an idea of who wants to go through the 3-year term versus the 2-year term. And then we can at least bring that back to the next meeting. It might be a little bit faster. That's just a suggestion.
Well, since we are missing 3 members, I am going to suggest, if possible, that once again, we delay this if everybody's in unison. We will send a copy of it out again. Did everybody get a copy of it? Sherry, Lori, Peter, did you get a copy of policy 54? Okay, Peter says no. Lori, do you remember seeing that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to see.
Okay,
We'll
I
send it out
have-
again. We'll send it out again, but it's also, if you
I don't know if
remember,
read
to
it.
get into the
That's
Get
what
Involved
it looked
site.
like. Okay. If everybody's in agreement, then what I'm going to suggest is that if Sherry and Natalie can send it out to everybody again, and for now, we will hold off the vote for it. Is that acceptable to everybody? Derek says yes. I need a second to go with this. Because I can second it, I guess. And we will hold this off. We will hold off the vote until our September meeting. Sherry and Natalie will send a copy of it out, and I'll be in contact with some notes about it. But we'll hold the vote off till September because it's not urgent, but we do need to know who's going to fit in what slots, just for the sake of the town.
Yes.
I will
I'm
touch
happy
base
to
in case there's some people reading on this. Yes, Sherry?
Sorry, I just said I'm happy, as Natalie suggested, to send out just a request to kind of get interest to see who is interested in a 3-year term or a 2-year term. So we can do that in the meantime as well.
Okay. It should be noted when I read through it, a couple of things. Those of us that have been voted to executive positions, Jane, myself, and Sherry, we serve 1 year according to the wording, at which time we can offer up again or we can deny, but it will be held for a vote. Earlier this week, we did receive a request from someone to join. That was denied simply because all of the chairs are currently full. The town is still taking applications, resumes, whatnot, for people that might want to serve on this group. However, this group, the members of this group must be made up 50% of people with accessibility issues or people working with accessibility issues. Also, we are appointed by the town, and it is only the town, to the best of my reading, it is only the town council that can remove us. In other words, we cannot hold a vote and remove you. That's up to the town. Am I correct in that, Natalie?
You're correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
And we're not holding
And that's all I really have to say about that. Like I said, Natalie and Sherry will be reaching out to you. Please read through it and please email Sherry and Natalie back to say, okay, I'm interested in 3-year term, a 2-year term, a 1-year term, or that's it, I quit, I'm out of here. You know, let us know what you're thinking. Okay, I'm going to move on. Community consultation event preparation. That's you, right, Nat, or Mike?
Well, it's all of us actually.
Okay.
But what I wanted to do, Mr. Chair, was to walk us through the action items that we took when some of us got together on July 29th, and that'll at least give us a process to make some decisions and to identify further action. So if you'd like, I can go through that, and then we can all chime in if that's acceptable.
Before we start, did everybody get a copy of this? Everybody not get a copy of this? Might be the best answer. Okay, if you haven't gotten a copy of it, I'm gonna bug Natalie again. Email Natalie, let her know.
Yeah. So what I would suggest is everybody can go to the town website where you signed up for the meeting, and the eScribe, you have direct access, and this was also provided by email, but happy to share it again. But just so that you know that it's unfortunately sitting in your inbox someplace. Okay, so without further ado, let's walk through it. So the first thing is when we started to review the accessibility directives event guidelines, one of the things was to look at if there were any scheduling conflict. So when I did a little scan of major events that was happening around the region the week of September 13th, I identified that the 55 plus games is actually scheduled to start the week of September the 16th to the 18th. And as you know, it relies a lot on community volunteers, of which some of the members helping out in the 55 plus games actually serve on our committee. So they would not be able to attend the community consultations that week as they'll be preparing. So with that, bringing forward to this committee is that we recommend moving all the consultations in person and the virtual ones to the following week, starting September 20th. So just looking to get some confirmation so that those that are in the communications and planning committees can start to work towards that week.
You want that in a form of a motion? Is that to change the date? Is that?
Do we need a complete motion for this?
I think the first thing is make sure that those that are, and I know that Gail said that the week of the 20th works better for him. So we just need to maybe send out, because we don't have 3 members on our attending right now, to
Is
just
Mike
get
on board?
confirmation that they're all available.
I see his place, I see his initials. Does that work for Mike on the 20th to be in place?
Yes.
By
Yeah, those timeline changes are fine for me.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's aim for that date.
Right. So maybe Sherry, as part of that other email that you're sending out for committee terms, is just so let's get a confirmation that everybody can block out that week of September 20th for community consultation events.
Absolutely.
That'll
Okay.
be, Natalie, I hadn't really clued in, but that'll be the election, the by-election will finished up as well. So
Yes, because that's on the 17th, right, Mike?
yeah, or the 18th.
Yeah, so 18th.
Yeah, well,
So
the provincial election's the 17th. Or no, sorry, I got myself confused here. Our special election's on the 18th of September. So
okay, so it actually works out better, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
I'll be busy with that too.
Okay, so it is. The other thing we discussed is about venue. So this is to do with, as we're moving into phase 5, knock wood, with the COVID, that this is an opportunity for us to think about in-person focus groups. So that was a big discussion that we had on the 29th. And so again, I'm coming to the committee to say, is this something that we want to start planning? And if so, we need to start planning it pretty soon to see what venues that would meet all of the accessibility guidelines that would be available. So is this something that we want to also pursue, is to do in-person focus group sessions?
I think it's a good idea. Just
Sorry,
right.
Derek.
Oh, sorry. Right now, with the in the last couple of days, with the possible exposure sites, it seems like people are really freaking out about the fact that there's a couple cases in the Western area. So So I'm just thinking that will calm down probably in a couple days, but I'm thinking it might be nice if we're going to do the in-person, which I think we should, to announce it at a time that isn't going to panic people, I guess.
I would agree. So maybe some direction that I need is that if we can just identify suitable locations that would have the amenities in order to have the in-person focus group sessions, at least then we can send some emails around to the group in the next little while, so we can say these are the locations that would be available. This is the number of people that could be, based on COVID requirements, that could be accommodated, X, Y, and Z. Because like it's a good thing because we're heading outside of the 55 plus games, because a lot of those venues may not even be available because they're trying to book for other events. So just need some direction to at least do some pre-planning and then bring it back to the group.
Okay, I'm just gonna open things up here a little bit, maybe for my own understanding. But when we talk, I'm kind of thinking these are secondary meetings, these focus groups. Are we talking about going into nursing homes, schools? Because I see quite an age range there, from trying to reach our children and trying to reach our seniors and making sure we get that feedback. Are we just basically looking at a standard town hall meeting?
So I think one of the things that came up when we were sorry, was that Lori or Sherry? I'll let you guys go first.
Mike, you have something to add here?
Not yet. I'm just gonna keep listening.
Okay. Just I have your mic off, so.
Right. So part of the trying to do and Mike can speak to the communications timeline. So part of getting the word out so that people can start to register for the virtual event, which for all intents and purposes is the town hall, is so that we know who is missing from that registration. And then based on that, then it's about setting up those focus groups. And so that focus group, as you just suggested, Mr. Chair, can be directed by age or, by mobility challenge or accessibility challenge. So that's for the team to come back with the feedback from Mike to identify who it is that's missing from the conversation. And then we need to come up with a strategy of whether or not we're bringing people together or whether we're going out to meet with them. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. The only reason I'm going to say I bring up children here is something that Natalie and I don't know if you even remember, but you said you were talking to somebody from, I believe, Justice, Nova Scotia, that said often in our audits, in our meetings, we forget the children. And I'm thinking, that's bugged me ever since. And I'm thinking, how can we better look at the children's programs, look at the children's events, and make sure that we don't forget those in our audits, in our meetings, and whatever we do.
It was actually developed Nova Scotia, and they were talking about making sure that events are accessible for all. But maybe Councillor Derek, since he's involved with the school system, might want to add to that comment.
Yeah, I know there are things that I would see in a school when we have students, for example, in a wheelchair, is one. They built the new Yarmouth High School, and it was supposed to be completely accessible. There's a button to get into the school, so you can get into the front. There's a button to ring into, because it's a secure building. You can get into the office, but you cannot by yourself actually get into the building past that. So I've watched over the number of years. I'm not at the high school now, but I've watched over a number of years students in wheelchairs or people visiting in wheelchairs kind of sit there awkwardly waiting for somebody to come let them in, and it just kind of, the equality in that is not really great. But they have students, certainly, if they'll identify those things in most cases. So I think they do have something to offer. But then the other part is like things like the splash park, or events that are held by leisure services and that kind of thing. Are they actually accessible to the youth? And that would be, I think, it's a place that we should hit.
So maybe Councillor Derek, we might want to lean on you to help us, depending on what we get as the sign up. I'm sure a lot of youth may not potentially be signing up for the virtual session, but we won't know until we get that registration process started.
Yeah, and I'm on, Kathy Hart's our student services consultant. So she's dealing with, I mean, she deals with everything student service wise. So that would involve, I think, most accessibility issues. And I can get her involved as well and see if we can, with the school teams, identify. I mean, I guess it's only really we're only looking at the schools in town because we're looking at town residents, or are we looking at the county as well? With that?
Well, we're really so it's not so much about accessibility in the school system because they have to obviously adhere to the requirements, but it's about getting the voice of our youth and the young in how they use our public spaces. So some of that, yeah.
Do we want to question people that are living in the county because they're still users in our area, or is it
anyone? It could be a resident or a user.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Mr. Chair?
That does make sense. I just would say, as a youth worker, like Natalie's already mentioned, we can't really touch the school system because that's really up to the province and Department of Education. But once that school bell rings, they're ours. And is there programs, sidewalks, whatnot, is there programs out there for children with accessibility issues? And that's something we need to look at.
Great.
Are we hitting that mark?
Yeah. And that's the consultation part. So the next thing is maybe Mike, the next two items, if you have an opportunity to speak to those.
The next two items that I have, you can put my agenda here.
It's the promotions and registration checklist, and then the communications and accommodations checklist. It's just some notes that we took, and maybe Mike can speak to some of them, and then the rest goes back to the.
Speak to the registration and accommodations, recommendations of checklist.
Okay, I'm going to speak to the accommodations, communications accommodations first. Sorry, I missed my name on that the section before that, Natalie. Maybe we can talk about that one a bit together here.
Sure.
In terms of the closed captioning, not sure who got a look at my email earlier, but the solution that for our online session, the solution that Alan threw my way, and I think it works well, unless I'm missing something, and obviously looking for feedback, is the solution to essentially anybody who signs up, and we'll provide the instructions when they register about this, and I can provide a tutorial and a simple tutorial and video like I did today to instruct people to use Chrome browser, which most people are using anyway. So that solution, when you turn on those live captions in Chrome, now I'm not the best judge for closed captioning and the quality. I know that Teams isn't the greatest, but in my experience using that for a day or two here and there, it was pretty good in terms of the quality. So if people register and they come back to and take part in the session with led by Alan and the rest of us, if they're using Chrome and they follow those instructions to turn on live captioning, they're going to have real-time captioning. So I think it takes care of that issue.
I did try it, Mike, today, the link and through the YouTube. And it worked. I mean, I went to a YouTube and the audio came on as well as the closed captioning.
Yeah, it seems to work pretty good. And I've tried it in a few other environments too, not just YouTube, but in places where there was embedded video and that sort of thing, and it seems to be fairly reliable.
It would be good if Peter and the other Lori and the others tried it as well, to make sure that it was easy for them to negotiate that information on how to set it up.
Yes. Well, I sent that email earlier today to everybody. If you could take a few minutes over the next couple of days just to check it out and give me your
Did
feedback.
everybody get Mike's email? Okay. Can you take a moment this week and check it out? Give us your opinion on it. I use it. I mean, and I'm a hearing impaired person, and I use it without my hearing aid, and I'm 100% confident in it.
Good.
So Mike, just flipping back to the promotions and registration checklist, unfortunately you were on vacation when we had the meeting, but what came out of the checklist, and it's actually a really great checklist for any event that we hold, is that when we start doing the promotion about registering for the event, it's for us to identify what tools are available. So to identify in advance all of the alternative communication methods that the registrant can use. So they are fully aware that if they register, that these are the things that will be available to them. And even in the way that we're promoting the registration, to make sure that we're not just presenting it in one format, right?
Right.
And so that they know before they register what needs they will be accommodated. And then also they need to let us know if there are any special accommodation needs so that we can prepare for that in advance, or at least get back to them if we run into a challenge. So that was a big aha moment that we had in reviewing that checklist.
Okay.
I'm going to
it's
send
not
this
only
over
during the event, it's before the event we need in how we
just before
communicate it.
Mike answers. I'm going to send this over to Sherry, and I'm going to ask Sherry because this is what she does. Should we, as far as any pre-registration literature, stuff like that goes, should we make sure that we can apply it in large print or braille or whatever?
It's kind of hard to say exactly what the needs will be, but those options should be available, I guess, on request perhaps. But then is somebody who's going to need those know ahead of time, know that the registration exists without that? Kind of what the group decides, I guess, but to have those available. And I can't remember exactly what it said in the checklist as far as that goes, but having them available upon request for sure.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, if I'll go with that, Sherry, for sure. I think I'll need to take a bit more time to look at this section, page 7, and all of the items in there to sort of process it in my plan, and then get together with the communication sub team and present my ideas on what we can do and just make sure it works.
And Sherry, you can be a resource if Mike needs to reach out because of your background and experience in providing maybe a connection to somebody that might be able to help us out.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Great. So I think the last part there is that we had talked about, again, if we were doing in-person sessions, how could we support people getting to the location? And so one of the suggestions was that we could, through Gil, Mr. Gildares, is reach out to town council to see whether or not there's an opportunity to use one of the maybe out of service buses to transport registrants to the venue. So Again, part of this understanding very quickly about, you know, who's registering for the event and who's not registering for the event, and then being able to react and plan around that.
We did talk about this. Anybody got any feedback on that? I think it's a good idea because some people will, if we have an open event, such as a town hall meeting, some people will need transportation to that.
Right. So, Mr. Chair, the big meeting is still virtual, but it's if we have in-person meetings and we're not going to the location where the people are located and we're bringing them, then that's a suggestion about, I mean, again, they could contact or coordinate with Hope, Dial a Ride, but also potentially see if we could get the service of the town transit bus, which has, you know, some accessibility stuff on there, like the wheelchair, right? Can lock in the wheelchair, etc.
And one thing that did come up in our conversation when we met about this before was just the importance of communicating with people and being open and flexible to what specific people are going to need as far as whether it's registration or the event itself, just because needs are so specific. So someone who needs like large print is very difficult because you can have a set size of print, which might not be quite large enough for somebody else, or it might not be just what somebody needs. So trying as much as possible to meet those specific needs will be important, I think, as we get these planned.
And we're really not going to know what the needs are until the registration forms start flowing in for people attending the virtual meeting. And some
So
people, like
yeah.
we talked about, may just choose to fill out the form, mail it in.
Yeah. So part of that is that
what we see.
Yeah. So part of that is the week of the 13th. We can, and Mike, please let me know whether or not you don't think that that's doable. But the week of the 13th, we can have the Get Involved platform ready and launched, as well as the paper, because someone can pick that up anytime, right? To your point. And it's just the 20th is the week of the 20th is just really the in-person and the virtual session.
Right.
Mike, do you have any in your thoughts in order to get that feedback from those that are looking to register the event? What do you think the earliest that we can? Is there anything that you need from us other than the alternate methods so that we can start that registration process as soon as possible?
Just feedback on as I develop the messages and the actual you know, the ads, if you will, and the content. But yes, the alternative methods, of course. And it sounds like this is starting to get clear in my head. We need to be very clear when we communicate to people that we're looking to hear from them about what their needs might be, so they can participate. Just to make sure that we get that message out, it's important, obviously.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, but want to. My thoughts were to be advertising the virtual session, you know, heading into that first week of September or towards the end of August. Get involved pages, that's an easy one to have set up and ready to go. It's just adding the survey and pushing it out there. So yeah.
Is there a deadline, Natalie, on having the bus ready if we need it?
I think what I would say is that I will just prepare a statement for Councillor Dares, and he can bring it up at the Committee of the Whole on the 26th, just so that he can put it out there to Council and the CAO and certainly operations that are responsible for the bus, just to see whether there would be availability that week. Would there be any constraints? So just to get it out there, the request, and you know, if we don't need to use it, that's okay. If we do need to use it, at least we've started that process of discussion.
I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with asking. And as Mike says, most of it's going to be virtual. Maybe we'll need it. Most likely we won't, but it's nice to have if we do. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. Do you have anything more, Natalie?
No, Mr. Chair.
Mike, do you have anything more?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay. I have 8:16. Is there any more questions or concerns before we go into the closing? Anybody want to bring anything up? Okay. As it was already stated, before I close this meeting, please keep an eye on your email. Things are going to get real busy real quick. The people that are not here, maybe they're going to watch this video. Please, if you are watching this video and you're a member of this committee, please reach out to Natalie or Sherry or myself or someone that was here and get caught up. Things are going to start to fly towards the end of August. What else do I have? Our next meeting is dated for September. I had it written down here. Has anybody got it? September 13th. That's the Monday after Labor Day. Offhand, is anybody not going to be around that we can record your absence now? Okay. Like I said, things are going to fly after Labor Day, so be prepared. Once again, if you are missing any paperwork that was submitted, please reach out to Natalie or Sherry and they'll make sure you get a copy of the paperwork, forms, etc. If that's everything, then I'm going to adjourn us.
Sounds good.
Okay. We're adjourned.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you guys. Thanks for